After shitting the bed with the Wii U, Nintendo's been ripping ass all over the place with the Switch. So much so that one could say that the Big N dropped a Big N bomb on consumers. But will the Switch maintain its momentum, and can its success eventually top the Wii? Well, the general consensus seems to be that while the Switch is doing better than most people anticipated, 101.63 million is way too big of a number for this little guy to surpass. But I think the Switch has got just what it takes to top the Wii, and here's 11 reasons why. Alright, so as always, before I begin making a positive video about Nintendo, let me just say that I'm not gonna carpool over the PS4 or Xbone. I don't want anybody to win a console war, and if you're rooting for any of the big three companies to fail, then you're a dick. The more successful console makers that are available, then the more options we as consumers have. A gaming monopoly would suck ass, and if you don't agree with me, then you'd change your mind pretty damn quick if you were stuck using this thing, having to deal with DRM policies or forced virtual reality. I'd sing Microsoft and Sony's praises too, but everybody's been doing that for years now since the two companies have been doing well, and I predict that their respective consoles will continue to rip ass. But since Nintendo's finally doing well with a home console again, I've gotta call things like I see it. And the more I think about it, the more I just can't see the Switch not outselling the Wii. So without further ado, let's start off with number 11. 101 million consoles really isn't that much.
That's not that much, really. Yeah, really. Let's get out of here.
Yes, of course that's an obscenely high number, but even though some people won't like hearing me say this, the Xbox 360 and PS3 both sold over 80 million consoles each, and they were basically the same thing. Not to mention that those two consoles never had the same kind of momentum that the Switch has had since it launched.
Okay, so you're
101 million consoles.
That don't impress me much.
Number 10. Nintendo's already topped the Wii before. If they did it once, they can do it again, and if they did it twice, then surely thrice. As impressive as 101 million sales is, the Nintendo DS sold 154 million units, with the Game Boy and Game Boy Color selling 118 million. The Game Boy might not be a fair comparison to make since it was on the market for an inappropriate amount of time, but the Nintendo DS had a normal lifespan and it also competed with the Wii for relevance. So not only did the Nintendo DS top the Wii, but it did so while coinciding with it. And just because one was a handheld and the other was a console doesn't mean that people had to buy both, which leads me to number 9. The Switch is a handheld and a console. If the Wii and DS both sold as well as they did while competing with each other, then I doubt with the Switch being Nintendo's one and only focus that topping 101 million sales would be unthinkable. The fact that the Switch can play games on your TV, tablet, or anywhere you want's pretty boss. But the real advantage this gives Nintendo that nobody seems to be talking about is that N-Dog's no longer competing with itself by dividing the development between two different devices. Poor marketing and a gamepad that can't be taken more than 30 miles away from your TV were the main reasons why the Wii U failed. But not having more than a handful of must-own games didn't do it any favors either. I'd wager that the Wii U would have done much better if it wasn't competing with the 3DS and if all the games that came out for the 3DS were exclusive to the Wii U. Imagine the Wii U having the only version of Smash Bros as well as new Pokemon games, Luigi's Mansion Dark Moon, A Link Between Worlds, and all the other 3DS exclusives. Nintendo has must-own franchises, but not must-own to the point where you need to buy them twice. Especially when the graphical differences between the 3DS and Wii U were closer than any of the previous handheld console counterparts before. And since the 3DS was a less expensive portable gaming device with optional 3D and a far more robust game library that also happened to be cheaper than games on the Wii U, it's no wonder the Wii U fizzled out to its superior direct competitor, the 3DS. My point is that the Switch doesn't have to compete with another Nintendo console like the Wii U did, and it has all the bases covered to satisfy customers' needs, which is something Nintendo's never done before with just one device. Number 8. Supply is actually being met. Nintendo recently came out and stated that they've ramped the Switch's production up an ass hair and are aiming to manufacture 2 million consoles per month. At the time of this video, we're 7 months into the system's life cycle, and the Switch is still selling out within 7 seconds of every restock. The main problem that we had was that it was actually pretty hard to find for a few years, which probably did make people want it that much more. But if the Switch can actually keep up with demand, then topping the Wii should be a very serious possibility. If Nintendo sells 2 million Switches per month, then it'd only take about 4 more years to surpass the Wii. But stop typing up that paragraph in the comments section about how you're gonna shove your fist up my ass and listen up. I know that just because Nintendo's making and shipping 2 million Switches every month doesn't necessarily mean that they'll be selling 2 million a month, nor is it a guarantee that this rate of production will keep up for 4 years straight. But the fact that Nintendo won't seem to have a problem making sure people are actually able to buy a Switch is yet another advantage it'll have in its attempt at topping the Wii. And who knows, maybe N-Dog can even pull 2 million a month off with games like Breath of the Wild, Super Mario Odyssey, tons more we don't even know about, and a seamless transition into number 7. Third-party games. They're here to stay. Like I said, we're only 7 months in, but it seems painfully obvious that third-party support for the Switch isn't going anywhere. In fact, I'm so confident of this that if I'm wrong, then I'll rip my own goddamn mustache off. I mean, you'd be stupid to not want your games on the Switch. Nintendo systems have always been worth buying for the first-party titles alone, and if you sweeten the pot by adding more variety with not only big-time third-party games, but indies as well, then the Switch is gonna pee money all over Nintendo's front doorstep. In fact, I'm pretty sure that's what's happening now. Let me check. Look guys, I went to Nintendo. It's pretty cool, right? Number 6 and 5. The Switch has more hype than the Wii, and it actually lives up to it. The Wii certainly had its fair share of hype back in the day, but I'd argue not nearly as much as the Switch currently has right now. In 2006, YouTube existed, but it wasn't nearly as big as it is today, nor was the online gaming community in general. And Nintendo seems to finally understand the value of promoting their games on the internet. Well, sort of. While the Wii did have plenty of great games that I personally loved, the console didn't have much long-term appeal as everybody first thought. A lot of the Wii sales were impulse buys from soccer moms who knew the system was hard to find, and it was cheap enough to not be out of the question of buying despite only having minimal interest. However, the Wii software sales weren't very good because most people just let them collect dust after 3 rounds of Wii Sports until they ultimately ended up donating them to Goodwill. At least in America. The Wii was also an immensely underpowered machine at a time where graphics mattered way more than they ever will again. And while Nintendo did make great games for the Wii, they still divided their development teams up to support the DS, and for some reason, nobody wanted to play watered-down third-party games with forced motion controls on the Wii, with a few exceptions here and there. By all means, the Wii was a quality console, but not enough to justify the hype behind it, especially in its last 2 years. But the Switch, on the other hand, is every bit as good as its hype. It is a little weaker than the PS4 and Xbone, but it's portable and strong enough to run multiplats with graphical differences not nearly as severe as the Wii's were in comparison to the PS3 and Xbox 360. And the forced motion controls turned a lot of people off to the Wii, even though some people actually liked it. The Switch, on the other hand, found the perfect balance with the traditional controller and optional subtle motion controls, which is the perfect middle ground where everybody could be happy. And since most people who bought a Switch actually play and enjoy it, it doesn't look like it's gonna have the same bad reputation amongst the gamer boys and girls that the Wii had. Number 4. People are gonna buy more than one Switch. The Switch may be a console, but like I've said 68 times in this video already, it's also a handheld. And one advantage handhelds have always had over consoles as far as sales go, is that it's pretty common for households to have more than one of the same device. After all, if you take the Switch with you on the go, what are you supposed to do when your little shit niece wants to play Troll on your family vacation to Burma? Well, you're gonna need at least a few more for mom and your stepdad too, or that's gonna be one boring plane ride for the rest of the family. I mean, why on earth would anybody have more than one Wii in the same house? I'm sure there's a few exceptions here and there, but it makes perfect sense for houses to have multiple Switches, especially with all the cool Joy-Con colors and whatnot. And it wouldn't surprise me if Nintendo ended up selling Switches without docks, or more likely, both exclusively portable and docked models at cheaper prices. And that'll still count as units sold, giving the Switch yet another sales advantage that the Wii never had. Number 3. The Switch will be sold in China. Granted, it won't be until 2019 at the earliest, but the Switch is set to be released in a country with hundreds and hundreds of people that the Wii never ended up reaching. The long-standing rumor as to why the Wii never made it to China was supposedly because of the console ban that wasn't lifted until 2015. But most people who live outside of China don't know that the real reason Nintendo stayed out of that market altogether was because the Wii would have been crushed by the wildly successful Nintendo V, a console that even the Switch would have never had a chance competing with. Good thing for N-Dog, Nintendo went out of business due to its atrocious follow-up console, the Nintendo VY. And now the top 2 reasons why the Switch will outsell the Wii, so I could put 11 from Stranger Things in the thumbnail. What can I say? It was topical and slightly enjoyable for me to do. Come on, guys! I could've just came up with 2 more half-assed reasons to justify it, but I thought I'd be frank with you since you made it to the end of the video. And don't even try to tell me you dislike 11. I mean, come on, doesn't the thumbnail look better with her on it? Besides, 9 reasons was all I needed to drive the point home. Anyway, that's my list. In my opinion, the Wii's the most overrated and underrated console of all time. The force motion controls and subpar for the time graphics didn't justify 100 million sales based on merit alone. Most people would agree that the Wii's success was based more on being in the right place in time with a little bit of luck than anything else. It did have a lot of amazing new games and a plethora of virtual console classics, which is something the Switch could certainly use. And I honestly liked the motion controls when they were done right in certain games like Pikmin and Metroid Prime 3. But the Switch, on the other hand, is a console that's loved by pretty much everybody who's actually played it. And with all these advantages over the Wii, I don't see any way that the hybrid console won't be able to top it. But I don't know if that means that Nintendo will make more money than they used to. After all, the Wii sold 100 million consoles and the DS sold 150 million consoles in the same generation. As confident as I am for the success of the Switch, I don't think it'll come anywhere near the same ballpark as the Wii and DS's combined sales, or even profits when you take games, accessories, and pricing into consideration. I know the shares for Nintendo just reached a 10-year high, but that success could also be contributed to things other than the Switch, like the Classic Edition consoles, Amiibos, and Nintendo's new line of crab juice. So the Switch isn't the only good thing Nintendo has going for itself. But I also doubt the Switch will be able to top the PlayStation 2, because on top of being a fantastic gaming console, the PS2 was also the cheapest DVD player for years when DVDs became the new standard for movies. And I don't think the Switch can even top just the DS's sales either, since since a lot of DSs were bought by parents who wanted to keep their kids busy, which is a void that tablets and cell phones have since filled, which would explain the 3DS's inferior, albeit still impressive numbers. Depending how long the Switch will be on the market, I suppose it's possible to top the Game Boy's sales, but I doubt we'll see the Switch last half as long as the Game Boy did. So if I'm correct, and I've never been wrong about anything before, which is kinda weird come to think of it, then the Switch will probably be the 4th best-selling console of all time. But I'll be even bolder than that and guess that it'll probably sell around 110 million consoles. Fight me. But before you do that, let me know what you think in the comments below. Will the Switch hype die down and make me rip my own mustache off, or do you think it'll keep on trucking? Like always, I'll pin whatever comment I enjoy the most. Don't forget to like and share this video, and if you're a mega badass, then press the subscribe button. My name's Cameron, and I'll see you sooner than a fortnight.
So I want to say thank you to your loyalty, thank you for your support.